people who work the most are the poorest people. That I think we don't see that enough. We think that your input of how much labor you do equates back to how much you have, and we know that that's not true. My grandmother worked 3 jobs, and thinking about my dad, how he worked himself to death. It is unsustainable and it's not human.
Tricia Hersey is an American poet, activist, and founder of the NAP Ministry.
It kind of gets to the heart of the matter of what capitalism has done to us, what it has made us believe. These toxic systems that don't allow us to see ourselves as full humans unless we produce. Resting allows you to see things that they want to keep from you. It allows you to see things that are hidden in your own spirit.
Is there a specific protocol people can follow to get started if they don't know where to start?
I think if
my sister, at some point, she had a job that entailed for her to work overnight. Her personality changed.
Really?
Anxiety, short-tempered.
Yeah.
This is not you.
To keep going, to keep being like that causes you not to do that, but also causes deep, deep health issues.
If there's one thing you can talk about, what they don't tell us, one main point that people can take away from this, what is it?
They don't tell you that you are...
Hi, Tricia.
Hi, Tracy.
How are you?
I'm really good.
I'm really glad you joined me on this conversation. I literally handpicked you from the bunch of speakers that were at the festival this week. So I'm so happy that you made the time because I think that what you are talking about is really important. And I kind of wanted to dissect it, talk about it on a macro scale, how it affects people as a whole, why you came up with this narrative to begin with. So let's start at the beginning.
Yeah.
What is the problem?
Yes. The problem is people don't see themselves as human. I think the systems in our culture, I can name them: capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, ableism. I mean, there's many. There's a whole family of these toxic systems that don't allow us to see ourselves as full humans unless we produce, unless we work, unless we accomplish. And so our worth as human beings, as divine human beings, is connected to how much we can get done. And also the problem is also the history of labor in a culture. This work comes out of my history. I'm a Black woman from America with a lineage of enslavement, thinking about the transatlantic slave trade and everything that happened in the American South and the injustices that Black people in the United States and really all over the world have went through. And so it kind of gets to the heart of the matter of what capitalism has done to us, what it has made us believe, what it demands from us, and how we aren't able to keep up with it. It's unsustainable and it's not human.
And how do you think it trickles down to how people are living day to day right now?
Yeah, day to day, it's the hustle. It's the grind, go, 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 24/7. It's also looking at the economy and the systems that make it so that people have to work this way. You have a full 9 to 5, plus you get 2 side hustles, plus another job. And in many places, you can't even afford rent or food. And so this inequality of salaries and income. But I think from a spiritual lens, it really makes people not see their full divinity. I'm really interested in what the systems have done to us that has degraded our divinity, that make us feel like we aren't worth anything, that makes us really hate ourselves. And so I think the systems have done a real brilliant job of making people hate themselves in so many ways, and the way they see themselves, the way they look, how they think about life. Everything is centered around how much they can do. I know people who on a day-to-day, even when they have a day off, they're like, I feel like I should be doing something. Like, I have a day off, I'm getting paid for it, but I feel lazy. This idea of laziness and how much we can accomplish and how it's attached to what we feel about ourselves. And so my work really disrupts that idea. It attempts to be a disruption. It attempts to push back against this toxic idea that we aren't enough, that we got to do more. It has to be more, that we just can't be. So yeah.
How do you differentiate between... first we'll jump to what the work is that you're doing to kind of negate that. But how do you kind of segregate between actual lazy, which does exist, and because people that are not actually going after what they want, finding some sort of purpose, listening, looking inwards, and the idea of you thinking that you're not enough while you're still trying so hard?
Yeah, I think it looks at how your life is showing up. I really came from this out of a place, I come from a legacy of poverty. My family, the people who work the most are the poorest people. That I think we don't see that enough. We think that in many places, your input of how much labor you do should equates back to how much you have. And we know that that's not true. Like my grandmother worked 3 jobs, and worked. She was the hardest working person. Thinking about my dad, I talk about him in my first book, how he worked himself to death, really the exhaustion of his life, of him just trying to live. The culture specifically, I know I'm speaking from the United States, doesn't really allow people to be able to live a thriving full life, even if they're working the hardest. Like when I wrote the first book and really started this organization, I was in graduate school at one of the top seminaries in the country. I was working 2 jobs, raising a child, and I still was having problems paying rent. I was in no way, shape, or form not doing enough. But because of who I am, the family I'm from, the color of my skin, being a woman, like page, all the things that come together that make it so hard for you to thrive. And so I think there's a false understanding around the idea the more you do, you should be at this place. You should be, if you do all this, work 3 jobs, go to school, get all this, that you should be at a place of wealth, of importance. And that's just not the way it is in cultures, because of the inequalities, because of oppression, because of poverty, which is created, because of so many toxic systems that are like weighing on us. And I think also outside of that, there's a spiritual dimension to the work. A person who has been trained under the curriculum of white supremacy and capitalism really, from a very young age, begins to not see themselves as enough, not see themselves as a whole person, not see themselves as divine or enough. And so that false sense of who they are trickles down into their entire life. If you don't love yourself, if you think you aren't enough, if you think you have to keep doing more, spiritually, that can slow you down. That can stop you from actually tapping into the things that are going to make you a successful person, are going to give you the passions and the ideas that are going to get you to the next level. So I think it's really important that we say people who work the most are the ones who have the least in a lot of cultures.
That's very true. I totally agree with that. We see this. I mean, the elite, they kind of, you would say in a sense that they've cracked the code of, it's not being part of the rat race. There's a way where you don't need to put all of your time into exchange time for money. But how do you explain that to the average Joe? And when you say rest, and that's what your work is all around that. What does rest mean? Rest, right? In the essence, right?
Yeah, I think that's the slow deprogramming. I claim my work from the beginning to be a deprogramming. It's helping people to deprogram around the ideas that they've been taught their entire life. Capitalism, the curriculum of white supremacy has taught us so many things that just aren't true. And so to me, resting is anything that slows you down enough that there's a connection between your mind and body. It means slowing down. It means boundaries. It means healing. It means healing from anything in your past, the toxic trauma that may have happened to you that allows you to now become your full self. And so this is really an invitation to heal. I think people hear of the work and they're like, well, I don't like to take naps, or I don't like sleeping. I want to go. I'm like, well, it doesn't have to always be that way. This is an opportunity to reimagine. And my book the first book really talks a lot about imagination and what that looks like for people who are in an oppressed place, that what it looks like for people who are being held back based on things that are outside of them. And so I guess it is helpful to know that when I started the work, I was in seminary training and I was studying things around the history of labor and the culture, looking at capitalism, how it was founded. So it's a historic examination of what capitalism has done to bodies, what it has said. And what capitalism says to a body is that it's not human. It has experimented on specifically Black bodies for centuries to see how far can you automate a body. Can they work 20 hours? Could they work 3 jobs? Could they work 4 jobs? This idea of profit over people, the idea of us thinking that our entire existence, our entire reason for being born is to work. Really, people feel this way. They really feel like there's nothing else. There's no hobbies in their life. There's no leisure. They're here to only work, make money, produce, accomplish, and that's the end of. And I want to say that that's the opposite of that. I think we really are not born to just simply be a tool for capitalism's use. I didn't have a son for him to just be a part of the cog of the wheel, to just go and go. I wanted him to be able to see who he is as a full person. So the work really is about getting us back to our true nature of who we are as human beings. It's work that tries to uncover the humanity in people and give people a glimpse into what really is true. Because exhaustion and sleep deprivation is a real thing. Like, it's a public health issue. People are killing themselves from not resting or not sleeping.
I'm with you on that. There's a lot to touch on, actually. We'll move into like stuff like burnout and stuff a little bit into the conversation. But I want to kind of put my mind in the minds of a few people watching that are probably saying, okay, let's say, easy for you to say right now because you found your purpose. You know what you like to do. So you have the liberty or the option to do so and so. Tracy, easy for you to say because you're not in a 9 to 5 anymore, but I have bills to pay. I have so and so dependents. So assume the people that are thinking that way. And they're like, rest who? What do you mean rest? Like,
they say it every day. It's the most asked question I ever get.
Most asked question. Yeah. So when you say rest, I want to ask a couple of things. In the context of rest, is it defined as working less, or even if it's finding moments to pause and to kind of be in tune, that still counts as rest, even if you're working 16 hours?
Totally. Is
that what you mean?
Yeah, my grandmother worked too. I tell a story about Grandmother Orr. There's a beautiful illustration in the book of her. She's really the muse of the work. She was a refugee of Jim Crow terrorism in the American South. She left during the Great Migration of the 1950s from Mississippi and moved to Chicago, where I'm from. She worked 2 jobs, and between her 2 jobs, she rested her eyes every single day on the couch. She stopped. She held space to reclaim her body and held space for her rest. It didn't matter we were running in and out the house, what we were doing. She would sit on the couch with her eyes closed. And I would always be like, what are you doing? Are you asleep? She's like, no, I'm resting my eyes. I'm listening. Every shut eye ain't
Is it almost
sleep.
like being present for a moment?
Being present, connecting. I believe that when we go into rest, when we rest, that there's a dream space that opens up to us. There's a space of imagination that opens up to us that we can't have when we're in an awake state. That this moment of like connecting with our bodies, with our ancestors, with spirit, with our own selves. We're so disconnected and disembodied from a somatic level that we really don't even know what's really available to us. And so I think one of my favorite theorists is Bell Hooks. She talks about the idea of imagination being the greatest tool of those who are oppressed. If you can tap into imagination space, anything is possible. You can imagine a whole new world. You can imagine a whole new success for yourself. So many things you can figure out in a dream space. And so this work really uplifts the idea of tapping in, slowing down, tuning in, connecting with your body, finding boundaries, and actual real literal naps and rest as well. But it's a connection and reimagination of all those things. So what was my grandmother doing, raising 8 children, suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome, from fleeing her home, working 2 jobs, cleaning, and like really having so much around her trying to crush her, for her to sit on the couch every day for 30 minutes to an hour and say she's listening. I'm listening. She would sometimes say, I'm listening to the universe. I'm listening to God. What downloads, I wonder, was she receiving that would allow her to continue on to raise these beautiful children, all her grandchildren, to be a woman who was able to tap into these special places in her body, in her mind. She was like the matriarch of the family. Everyone loved her. And so I think we have lost that. We have lost that with the rat race, with the busyness, with trying to be something that we're not, with technology, all the things that have taken us away from our natural selves, from tapping in to what is available to us. I started this work from an exhausted state. I guess it's important. When I began the work, I was experimenting on my own body. I was suffering from migraines and I was feeling disconnected in my work when I was in school trying to learn. And I really was like, I can't keep up with the pace of this. I was working sometimes 12, 15 hours a day and still, not able to really make things come together. And I was like, I just am going to tap out, and my tapping out looked like finding these moments, like you're saying, to be mindful, to sit on the couch, to say no, to not push myself, to not stay up to 2 a.m. to finish a paper. I just went to sleep. And in those sleeping moments, things began to make sense for me. It was a connection that I can't explain. The dreams that came to me, the name of this organization came to me like in a dream, the ideas of what the framework would be for this work. A lot of the book I wrote, the first book, which, was instantly on the New York Times bestseller, came to me in dreams. I was like, and so I believe that if people could see resting and slowing down as really a generative state, it's not a state of laziness.
It's
not
an active kind of rest.
It's an active rest. And it's also a place that it's not just a waste of time. A lot of people tell me that it's a waste of time. I need to be doing something. Like, you are doing something when you're resting. You're like participating in spiritual practice. You're letting your brain and your body connect. I mean, from a biological place, lack of sleep is really causing us a lot of issues mentally, a lot of mental health issues, and also physical health issues are specifically tracked, to sleep deprivation.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it used to be a flex back in the day to say, I barely sleep 4 hours.
I'll sleep
I
when
don't
I'm
need to
dead.
sleep.
Yeah. It
Like,
was a flex. Yeah.
It's not. It's really not. And then you realize, I mean, I think my sister at some point, she had a job that entailed for her to work overnights.
Okay.
And her personality changed.
Really?
Anxiety, short-tempered, forgetfulness.
Really? The brain.
I'm just like,
yeah,
this is not you. Like, you were more. And then when she lost that job, thankfully, and she moved on to another one, and she started going back to like sleeping at 10 p.m., like having a 7-8 hour sleep.
Yes.
She just became calmer.
A new person.
So it's, I mean, it's not in theory, it's the science
real.
that tells you the truth of how important sleep is. And I keep trying to convince my dad, because he's just not on that. Like, till now, he needs the TV on and all the lights on. He needs sound to sleep. And I think
it's the nervous system is almost like so
overstimulated, 100%. So, I mean, obviously for in the literal sense, sleep, of course, is important. But when you talk about imagination, do you mean things like, I mean, just to find a different word for it, and tell me if I'm wrong, is it manifesting almost, or that's not what you mean when you say imagination?
I mean, we could talk about manifesting a little bit another moment, but I think for imagination, what I'm thinking of is, I'm thinking of the idea of like daydreaming and the idea of imagining the world you want to see. Everyone keeps talking about these new worlds we want to create. We want a world filled with justice. Even as a creative, I'm a creative, an artist. The space and the time you need to really imagine a new idea,
Absolutely.
You need that time. Like, we need to slow down. I mean, so many things come to us in a dream. I say the more you dream, the more you wake up. The more you sleep, the more you wake up. So I'm thinking about the idea of imagining the world we want to see, of being able to tap into the space that allows us to see what is really true. Because when you're exhausted, when you're sleep deprived, you're easy to manipulate. You're really not seeing things for what they really are. Like when you talk about your sister, her whole personality change, you're not really seeing what's really happening from a sleep science. I've studied a lot of sleep science. What's happening in the brain is that you're losing a lot of that cognitive ability. You're losing the part of the brain that can like process information. When I started sleeping in graduate school, I started getting so many better grades, just not because I was studying more, but because I was not stressing my brain out by staying up for 12, 13 hours straight. I was just go to bed, and then that allowed my brain to be able to download to recover, to take in all this new information, 500 pages a night I'm reading, to take all that in. How are we're not allowing ourselves to really feel and see and understand what's really happening, because we're just go, move. There's no space for like the air and the idea of like downloads. And so I think imagination for me thinks a lot about the idea of what can happen in the space between. You've did this, and then now you got to be on to the next. Well, what happens in the space of the slowness of the giving our bodies and minds a time to recover? And so I think we don't do that with our brains. We do that with our bodies. We work out. We know there's recovery days, rest days. You can't push a muscle this way, but then our brain is just forced, because of everything we talked about, to just go. So when I rest, when I sleep, when I can daydream and imagine, so many new ideas come to me. I would have never been able to come up with the idea of a ministry about naps, of a whole idea of a rest movement, if I was from an exhausted place. I don't think anything comes from exhaustion but more exhaustion. I think the new innovative ideas that we need to really push our culture forward to a just culture, a culture that's more inclusive, a culture that looks like liberation, really is going to come from a well-rested person.
So for people that think it's a luxury and not a necessity.
Yes. Or
how can they navigate that? It's a privilege. Like, I don't have I have 3 kids, let's say, and I have so-and-so a job in this business, whatever. And I don't have the time or the space to rest unless I lock myself in the bathroom.
Yeah.
People do say that now.
Totally.
Whether it's a real priority or not is a different story, because a lot of parents end up going out for a drink later at night instead of using that hour to like rest, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say they could do? I mean, assume you do have like your grandmother scenario.
Yeah.
How could they?
I love that question. I mean, I get that question so much. This book, actually, The We Will Rest, because I got the question so much about, just tell us how to do it, Tricia. Just give us the tips. They want the steps. They want a 10-step program.
Yeah.
This book is broken down in 10 steps, but the steps aren't the steps that you would like. One of the steps is listen. One of the steps is build community so that you don't feel so bogged down that you don't have the community around you to hold you up so that you can't make space for your own rest.
And you said community is not even like a group. It could just be one other person.
Other person. I think social media and the technology has made us think that we got to have millions of followers. We got to have everything wrapped up in a bow. I have a logo. I have people coming for these big events. Community to me is just one or two other people who are just holding space for you through this journey in life. And so I guess a really good tip I like to tell people is that our imagination has been stolen. Capitalism has stolen a lot of things from us. All of these white supremacy, patriarchy has stolen a lot from us. But one of the main things is stolen our ability to dream and our ability to imagine a new way. And so I think being able to reimagine what rest is important. So when I first started the ministry, people would be like, that sounds amazing, but I never nap. I don't like naps. Some people just literally cannot nap, because of their body, because of their sleep cycle, and that's fine. But I think if we can reimagine rest to be so many things, there's infinite ways to rest. I think prayer is a form of rest. I think the slowing down of prayer really allows us to connect to our body and mind in a new way. I think the ritual of tea making is rest. I think resting your eyes, like my grandmother did, 30 minutes to an hour every single day, is a deep form of rest. And she sat up doing it. She wasn't laying down. She was in a chair like this and just would close her eyes and went into a space. And so I think I would ask people to begin to see what are the ways that you can slow down. I think detoxing off social media is one of the main ways. Our time is stolen so much by technology and social media. So I do a lot of detoxes. I promote them online. I do sabbaticals, long ones where I'm offline for a whole month. I let everyone know in the community that's what I'm doing. And so I talk a lot about my format of creating my sabbaticals in my first book. Like, I think people don't understand that there's always time to rest. There's always time to not be distracted from something else, but we just have to begin to see ourselves as powerful enough. We also have to believe that we deserve rest. And so this idea of rest being a luxury and a privilege, I don't agree with that at all. I think it's a divine right. It's a human right. It's a birthright. It's something that is who we are. It's just like breathing. Without rest, we won't make it. And so the culture has taught us that we don't need rest, that it's not important, that it's a afterthought, that burnout is normal, which is not. That's just a normal part of a working person's career. It's not normal to burn out. It's literal trauma. And so I think just the idea of slowing down and reimagining, I really ask people to reimagine. And so I did a collective daydreaming activation yesterday, and I do them all over. But we bring people together and allow them to begin to learn what it means to daydream in a collective space with each other, to imagine a world that they want to see, to think about what things feel like in their body. I love somatics and the idea of body and what our bodies hold and how they keep score. And I think people don't understand that the body is waiting for us to slow down a little, to share with us information. It's a huge vessel of wisdom for us, but we don't listen because we're moving, we're 24/7 hustling, grinding. But to stop even for a minute, 10 minutes a day, taking a longer bath, not answering that call immediately, just giving yourself more of fluidity and grace in your day is like really what I think is one of the first steps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
without really putting a name to it, the truth is, when I started waking up with the sunrise and having those few moments,
I
like
love
the
that.
30 minutes of my day where I'm looking at the sunrise, it's really quiet, no one's around,
up, yeah.
and I'm just like, all these ideas are flowing in my
Right?
mind. Everything I want to do in the plans, I'm like, you know what? I can actually do this. The notes are going in
The
my phone. I'm
notes.
like,
Yes.
this is amazing, because ask me any other time of the day at 2 o'clock, at 4 o'clock,
Forget about it.
impossible. Like I'd forget a
Yes.
conversation I had half an hour
You
ago.
got children pulling on you. You got, yeah.
It's just a lot to take, and there's no room for imagination and creativity in
Yes.
those hours. So even if it means I have to put my alarm at 5:30 or 6,
I love that.
it allows me the space to plan for what I would want to do
It's
later with the
beautiful.
business or with myself or with the
Yes.
family. So that's really nice. I
love
mean, I
that.
love the way you position it like rest, because it's true. It's just a moment of like, for you, pause, rest in whatever form it comes for you, however comfortable it is for you.
Yes. I love that you said all the notes come to you.
I'm
Because
telling you.
when I took my sabbatical, I take a month off. No, not online, no emails, off work. I had 18 pages of the best notes ever. I had 18 pages of ideas for, like you said, my business, for my book. I outlined another project, just beautiful poetry, just things I wanted, words, rhythms. It was like 18 handwritten pages from just not being online, giving myself space to think, to hold space for my own like feelings. So I really love that idea. I think that's one of the greatest ways that we miss out on. People, as soon as they wake up, they're up, they gotta go,
They look at their phones, they're like texting.
their phones are right here. They got to get to work from here, children, babies. And so, but that's normalized. It's really normalized to move like that. Like you said, it was a flex to be like, oh, I don't never sleep. I don't like sleep. I remember when I first started researching the work, it was in 2013. I think when I was sharing with people, I'm thinking about this organization around rest, around like looking at it as a form of resistance against these toxic systems. They were like, oh, girl, I like to grind.
Yeah.
I love not sleeping. I sleep maybe 4 hours. I got to get on it. And I'm like, oh, you really saw that. And so now I'm seeing people a little bit more, that's lessening a little in the culture when I'm out and talking with people. They're more like, thank you for telling, sharing this information. I'm integrating it in my life. I'm taking more time, and I'm seeing people are saying it's really been saving their lives. I opened up the first book with "Rest saved my life." That's the first sentence of my first book, "Rest is Resistance," because I really feel like without it, I wouldn't be able to center my ideas, and I became a better mother. I became a better student. I just was able to take really charge of my life in a way that I wasn't when I was exhausted and sleep deprived.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for people that are on autopilot and they have corporate jobs, let's say, and this is a really good angle, maybe never said it in this way, but when people stress about not knowing what to do, I'm stuck in corporate, I don't have any purpose, I don't have any creativity. Truly, to listen to your body, to kind of sit there and listen to what happens in your gut when you come up with an idea in silence, in your rest time, which is mainly when that happens. It's a really interesting point. You end up falling into that spiral of like, that idea, this idea, you know what I really like? Cake making. That's really good. I saw this post.
Yeah.
You like cake making?
The connections
what can I possibly do?
come.
And that just, if you have that moment to listen to what's happening, that is how you find out if you want to do something else. And that's such a nice way to put it. Find that moment of rest in your day over and over and over again, and at some point something will come to you.
Yes, you'll connect. You'll be able to hear. You'll be able to listen. You'll be able to. My grandmother saying she's listening. That's all she was saying. Like, what is she listening? Like,
but did you understand what she meant by that?
When I was a little girl and 8 years old, I did. I just thought she was this eccentric woman, But now, yes, I'm like, oh, I understand what this woman was doing. She was raising 8 children, working 2 jobs. She was saying she was listening to God, listening to the universe. What downloads that she was receiving that allow her to thrive in her life, that allow her to keep moving on, allow her to heal from everything.
Was she happy?
She was the happiest woman. She was the sweetest, happiest. She gardened every day. She made homemade ice cream for the whole block, every day. She was like the love of the whole community. She took over an entire this area in front of her house. She just took it over. It was like lived in the city. And so I was like asking her, did you get a permit to she did a whole garden of food. She grew everything that she ate. Like all of the vegetables were beans. I would pick beans with her and lettuce, and she grew everything. And I'm like, she was like, no, I didn't get any permission to do this. It was just laying here and I just started growing. And so she was very innovative and very much a person who was really tapped into spirit. She was a healer, she would make herbs and medicines to give everyone. She didn't really believe in doctors, so she would heal herself. And she was really such a beautiful, tapped in woman.
What is your take on Western medicine versus let's go there?
Yeah, I mean, Western medicine, especially medicine in the healthcare system in the United States, is really trying to kill us. Like, let's just put it out there. I want you, when you read my first book, we'll have to communicate. But I talk in my first book about how I saw grind culture even taking over my health, even taking over in the medical industry. Like, I had a forced cesarean when I had my baby because the doctor needed to move on to something else. And so even the medical industry is moving at this grind culture pace. The doctor forced me to have it because she didn't think I would be able to go through a natural birth, but I never started the natural birth. She was like, I'm 6 feet tall. The women in my family are all tall like me, and the baby, it was showing that he would be a big baby. And she was like, well, I don't want to risk it because he's a big baby with you having any complications. But I haven't even started. Let my body try. I know I could do it. All the women in my family are tall and have larger babies. And she was like, no, it's too risky because the last larger baby that I had, it was something happened and I had a lawsuit. That's what she told me. The family is suing me now. God. She said that. And I'm like, in tears, I'm like, I want to try natural birth. I haven't even started, and so I had a forced cesarean because of that. So I ended up having a cesarean, which is this more difficult recovery. But I was literally trying to run from her. They kept calling the phone. You got to come to the hospital right now. It's time to give birth to the baby. But it was forced on me because she was her fear. Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, he's going to be big. I said, I don't think he's going to be that big. And she said, how much you think he'll weigh? I said, he'll be 8 pounds. When he came out, I said, weigh him. They said he's 8 pounds even, no ounces.
No.
She said, you knew. This the doctor said to me. She was like, I said, of course I knew. I'm a woman. It's my body. I knew from the time I found out I was pregnant before the ultrasound even came. They was like, what do you think it is? I said, it's a boy. They said, how do you know? I was like, when I knew I was pregnant, I knew it would be a boy. And then I was like, I knew how much he would weigh. It's like the way Western medicine doesn't listen to us. We know our bodies. So she was even surprised. The nurse was like, no, the baby's 8 pounds, no ounces. It's on the head of what and the doctor was like, I can't believe you predicted that. And I'm like, why can't you believe that? You're a woman who births babies for a living. You can't believe that a mother could understand and predict what her baby would be.
It goes back to what you were saying. Mm-hmm. It's like the system of autopilot and not looking at people as people anymore. Yes. We're all trying to work this machine. Somehow we're all trying to save our ass from a lawsuit.
Yes.
So there's always one of those things. And
the fear.
The fear, exactly. And I wanted to ask you, let's say about the healthcare system and how people, I mean, I read this somewhere where it's the real pandemic is not that people don't know what's healthy and what's not. It's poverty is the real pandemic because in the poorer regions, they don't facilitate access to the healthy and the right food.
Right.
They give you the stuff that's cheap and easy to buy. So they want to eat healthy. No one's dumb. They all know what's healthy and what's not, but that is what is available.
Yes, what's available. Yeah. It's all created. It's
and then it goes back to the whole system of big food, big tech, big agriculture, all trying to keep you sick.
Yes.
So that they can profit off of you. And then if they tell you what the real thing is, just eat good quality meat.
Yeah,
eat
whole foods.
Yes, you'll be fine.
Totally.
Right?
I totally agree with that. My grandmother was very much like that. She would make herbs all the time. My brother got really sick once. She made a medicine for him. And my mother was like, you didn't take him to the doctor? She was like, what? Because she was watching us and my parents were away. And she was like, why would I take him to the doctor? He's fine. I did it, And then I had measles once and she gave me babs and all these herbs. And she really did not trust doctors. She also told my mother that she didn't trust white doctors. She's a Black woman, and she's like, I don't trust white doctors. I know best. I know more about my body. And so I really really think that, like what you said, it goes back to the whole idea of fear and the whole idea of what the systems are trying to teach us. They don't want us well. I believe the systems know that if we're well rested, if we're not exhausted, if we're not sleep deprived, because then our brain will be making all the connections, we're going to really find out we're going to see what's really happening. So in this book, We Will Rest, I say, I am the trickster. I'm the one who peeped the scam, who saw what was up. And I know it's like our bodies know better. We know better. And in a lot of ways, the gig is up. I feel like resting allows you to see things that they want to keep from you. It allows you to see things that are hidden in your own spirit. The more you rest, the more you wake up. I just keep going back to that, the idea of what spiritually is happening in a dream space and what is waiting for us in these dreams and in these spaces of deep imagination. There's so much information there. It's almost like I feel like also our ancestors are waiting to give us information. They're like, if you would just slow down and tap into a dream, tap into a meditative moment, there's something that I can share with you. There's an idea that I want to drop in, and tap in. But to keep going, to keep being like that causes you not to do that, but also causes deep, deep health issues, inflammation, high blood pressure, diabetes are all linked to lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you believe to really tap in and listen, it is optimal to use psychedelics?
That's a good question. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it really does help. Yes. Yeah, I think the earth and the plants of the earth have so much to offer to us. Just like you said, with the whole foods and everything that's already here. I think everything we need is already here on earth. My belief is that there is enough for everyone. There is abundance here. There isn't a problem there's man-made poverty. But there is enough for all. This idea of scarcity is something that was created by the system to make us feel like there isn't enough. The earth has enough for us, for everyone to be well. And I think that, when you think about psychedelics, mushrooms, you think about the cannabis plant, all of the different things that are of the earth, they're here to help guide us. They're here to help heal us. And I definitely believe that they can be a good way to tap into those spaces. Absolutely.
Can you tell me a bit about the work that you're doing in the organization? Like, how do you bring the community together? What sort of, do you do one-on-one? Is it like online? How do you get the community together?
Well, we started doing all the events in 2017. So this is pre-pandemic. And so after the pandemic, little things changed, but I guess the signature program, the foundation of the work is these collective rest events, these collective rest experiences. And I guess they happen because when I first started the work, it was really just me experimenting on my own body. I had no idea I was going to be starting an organization, and I have never written a business plan. It was just me being like, I'm exhausted. It's unsustainable. I'm going to start just resting. I kind of, in a lot of ways, began saying, what would it look like if I just took a nap instead of like trying to finish that paper? What would it look like if I went and not push my body? So I started napping and resting all on my couches, all over campus, and things just started to connect for me. And I was like, as a person who's an activist and an organizer, I thought to myself, I know there's other people like me who are like exhausted and sleep deprived that could use this. And so how do I share this? And so I began to host these free events all over my city in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States. I started to host these free events where people can just come and rest and lay down. So they're called collective rest experiences. We lay down yoga mats, blankets, pillows. There's music. Sometimes there's live music, and harpists, sound bowl healers, but a lot of times it's recorded audio. We have tea, and we just lay down. There's an altar, a rest altar. My grandmother's picture is up there, and flowers. It's always a altar, and people are just sleeping. The first one I had, I was like, I'm just going to invite people out. I didn't have a dime. My friend was a photographer and had a studio. She's like, you can use my studio when I'm not there. It's beautiful, beautiful carpeted floors, and 40 people came, and it was for 2 hours, and I could not wake people up. It was like I had to literally be like, it's time.
So they literally just sleep?
They slept, and then we wake them up slowly with sound or with light, and then we have a nap talk. So we discuss what happened in your dreams? Can you talk about what happened? What did it feel like? In every single event, we've done thousands. Someone is in tears. People are sharing their dreams. Some people have the same dream. One time, two strangers had the exact same dream while they were sleeping. Because the syncing up that happens spiritually when you're resting, when you're sleeping, there is science around the idea that we sync up when you sleep next to someone or...
Really?
Yes, there's a whole lot of science around sleep, like when you're sleeping with your babies or your children or someone you love, but even with just people you don't know. And so I was in Chicago at an art exhibition, and we had a rest event, 50 people sleep in the basement of this beautiful art place. And we woke everyone up. People were like, I'm like, oh, who had a dream? Did anybody dream? Who slept? And then this woman raised her hand and she said, I had a dream. I was like, tell me about it. She said, I was on a boat. I had on this beautiful blue dress and I could feel the boat moving, that it was like rocking me to sleep, the energy of that movement, the waves. And I saw a woman way in the back. She started crying. I said, are you okay? What's going on? And she was like, I think I had the same dream. I was like, well, I said, you stop telling your dream. Will you pick up? And she picked up and the lady was like, that's what I dreamt. I had the same dress on. It was a syncing that
That's
happened
so freaky, by the
spiritually.
way.
It is very freaky. And I think spiritually, dreams to me are a spiritual place. And so that happened. And so we do that. We wake people up when we always have a nap talk, like this educational moment to really dig into the ideas of what happened, what resting looks like, what your body went through. And it's also a shared community space. We have tea and we sit and talk. Some of the events we've actually added education around reading text together. So we'll read some of the text that has really grounded the work. The feminist bell hooks, Martin Luther King Jr., Afrofuturism, all of the things that really are the layers that made me create this work. We do that. And then we wake them up and then we do that over and over again. We've done them all over Amsterdam, Australia, all over the States. We just did a really large one in Harlem, New York last month, 700 people.
No way.
Yes.
Just sitting and napping
it
like
was 700.
nursery students.
Exactly. And we also do collective daydreaming activation. So we've kind of, because the installation of the yoga mats and blankets, that can be a lot, but I want people to know that it doesn't just have to be a full sleep cycle. So we do the collective daydreaming activation. We just did one yesterday where people are just sitting in the chair like Grandma Aura.
Yeah.
There's music and I'm leading them through a guided meditation around how to daydream, because to me, daydreaming is also a form of rest.
Yeah.
And so we do those. And one woman came up to me yesterday and she was like, thank you for leading me through that. I really felt like I tapped in. I was having visions of myself flying. She was like, I was in flight. She was like, thank you for sharing that moment with me.
But how do you make that tangible?
Mm-hmm.
Like from there, when people start, okay, I had this vision, I tuned into this dream, and then what? What happens?
I think that just the idea of understanding that daydreaming is something that is valuable, because I don't know if this happened to you when I was a young girl. The teacher would say, oh, she gets really good grades. She pays attention to class, but she's always daydreaming. Mm-hmm. She's always looking out the window and she's not paying attention. And I'm like, my mother's like, I think she's paying attention, but she's getting good grades. She's doing the work, but they were always so strict, the teachers, about stop daydreaming.
Yeah.
Stop daydreaming, like especially in traditional education systems. It's another thing that I want to talk about. They are just the worst.
The worst.
The worst. I have a young child who's about to finish the public school system. He's 17. And what they have tried to do is always have to be me and his dad trying to counteract these, breaking down their imagination, making them be these bots who don't think, don't have no critical skills of thought. And so I think that the daydreaming allows people to understand it is valuable. And then the woman told me yesterday, she was like, I dreamt that I was in flight and I really got some ideas and I want to go home and journal. I want to tell other people that it's not a waste of time to do that. And so I think the collective daydreaming activations are an extension of the napping, because I want people to reimagine you don't just have to lay down on a yoga mat with a blanket and a pillow that we provide, and it doesn't have to be music, but that it also can just be wherever your body is, you can find this rest moment. So one of the tenets of the nap ministry is that our bodies are a site of liberation. Our literal bodies are this deep site of deep liberation. And so wherever our bodies are, we can find rest. We can find that anywhere. We can tap in like Grandma Aura, with her uniform on from cleaning houses. She would sit there and she tapped in, so we don't have to wait. It really is a space of deep freedom and allowing people to take the autonomy back, to reclaim their body as their own, and for it not to be on capitalism's time.
Is there a specific protocol people could follow to get started if they don't know where to start?
Yes. I think if people to first start would just to find ways to slow down. I think people rush, their urgency culture, they're burnt out, their nervous systems are totally overstimulated. And so I was just understanding the idea of like the deepest way to begin to calm your nervous system is to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down your talking, slow down picking up things, slow down how if you have children, how we're always rushing our children. Like I stopped doing that with my son when he was little. You know how slow they are with their shoes,
yeah,
trying to get themselves together. Yeah, get their little book bags. I was like, oh my God, it's like hurry up. It's like I stopped doing that because it's like I felt like that was like upsetting his nervous system. So instead of us getting up a little bit earlier so that he can take his time and put his little shoes on and find his book bag and not rush so much, not always rush, or especially when it comes to children, and that upsets our nervous system, always hollering. My mother, when we wake up in the morning, she was like, no one's talking loud before 10 o'clock. Everybody just talk low. We need to slow down.
That's really nice.
Yeah, so it's like this slow down moment. I also think we have to talk about detoxing off technology. I think that isn't spoken about enough, and anytime I get a platform, I want to talk about the idea of finding some way to do a social media detox, whatever that looks like. For me, it could be a month. Other people that could never do that because maybe their money or their business is attached to that. But even thinking about looking at how many hours a day you're spending, the apps on the phone allow you to track how much time you're spending. And it's pretty scary and frightening when you see how much time you're spending on it.
Yeah. I mean, going back to tuning in and listening, I was just having this conversation yesterday with a friend of mine that the reality is when I do my work on social media, if I'm posting or talking about something or writing something, I don't feel anything that bothers me. But when I'm in this random scrolling and I get lost from one reel to the next to this random thing, and then you get like the algorithm kind of takes you to like,
it's
and
8
then
hours
you're
later.
just like, and then all of a sudden, if you listen, you really almost every time feel anxiety.
Totally.
It's designed to make you feel like you're not enough, you're not the same, you're not doing enough, this person's doing better than you, you're making less money than this person, how can you do more and better and travel? And then you realize, like, honestly, truly, I understand people are working on I work on social media.
Me too.
But there's a very big difference between working on social media and posting stuff that you need to put up
and getting it and doing it,
and being the scroller. And everybody could take a break from scrolling.
Oh my gosh.
It is not a requirement of life to scroll on social media.
No, it's not. Just scrolling and scrolling.
It's completely unnecessary.
It's unnecessary.
That is the thing that people need to detox from.
Me
even
too.
if it means unfollow everybody and you have to do your own post. Maybe that is what you require. But I mean, it's not a requirement of life or of your time for you to do that, because it reminds you of how much you're procrastinating on even rest. How much you're procrastinating on your life, and it's just a heavy waste, So like a timer, 10 minutes. People.
Do timers. It's stealing time. It's the biggest distraction. It's so interesting you said that, because I have people in my DM on Instagram for the page, like writing literal 5-paragraph documents about why they can't rest. I'm like, you literally could have rest.
This is when.
I know.
If there is any time, this is it.
I literally think it probably took you 15 minutes to type this because it's that long. You could have closed your eyes and you could have had a rest moment. You could have rested right now. And when I respond to them, like, you could have this would have been a nap moment. They're like, you're right. I could have just put my phone down and just had a little 15-minute daydream. I could have tapped in. I could have had a slow cup of tea or something. And so I love what you're saying about the doom. They call it like doom scrolling or something. They've given it a name. But when I was doing research for my first book, reading about social media addiction, they were saying that the way the scroll was created that way for a reason. Like for the way that it never is an ending, you keep scrolling, there's never a break, even for a moment, that the producers of social media created that so that your brain would never know it was full. Because even if it stopped for 2 seconds, your brain would allow your brain to feel full. Like when you eat a lot, and it's like whatever that system is in the brain that allows for fullness, I've had enough, that is taken away when it never is a stop. And so they created and I was like so mad. I was like, do you guys know that they have created this is to make you addicted. They've made the function of a scroll never stopping so that you never feel full, that you never say, wait a minute, now I've been on here for 3 hours. And I didn't even realize it. And so when I put that in the book and shared that with people, a lot of people were like really shocked. Like, oh, I was like, oh, yes, people design things for a reason. These people are very brilliant. Like
they
the
know exactly what
technologists,
they're
they
doing.
know how to design.
I mean, it goes back to the idea of, my industry is in health and fitness, and I know a lot about like how certain triggers are created and what is in certain foods that were not accessible back in our hunter-gatherer days. They were purposely manufactured in a way for the hormone that triggers that you're not full never to switch on.
Really?
So when you're eating the processed food or oats, I don't know what, that never triggers that signal that you're full.
Wow.
There's a reason why you can eat a giant piece of pizza. I can finish a large pizza on my own. But if I have a steak, I probably can't have more than 400 grams. It's because the hormone that gets triggered in a steak gets triggered fast, and it tells you you're full, you don't need any more.
You're done.
But with the pizza, because it doesn't have the nutrient that will actually trigger that, you'll just keep eating, and you will not know ever that you're full. You're just going to eat on autopilot, similar to scrolling on the autopilot. And on the point of sleep, melatonin, which your body produces naturally to allow you to sleep. Most people pop pills of melatonin because they can't sleep. It only comes out when the digestive hormone in your body stops working. So when you're and the digestive hormone in your body doesn't come out, and blue light at night doesn't allow melatonin to come out. So then it stays dim, and then you can't sleep. You think I have insomnia.
No.
So therefore I'll continue to scroll, and I'll continue to like binge eating before I sleep.
But it's
you're like, but that is what is causing the melatonin not to come out.
Wow.
Park it. Try 4 hours before bedtime not to have something to eat. You'll pass out.
Yep, and don't eat, and also 4 hours. Don't be on that phone as well.
Your phone.
It's like put that away. Like don't have any blue light for those 4 hours. Between those two things, you'll sleep well. I love sleep science and that idea. I went to a big sleep science conference, and I was just blown away by these neuroscientists talking about what social media is doing to our brains and to the children's brains, and what lack of sleep is doing to our bodies. How they were saying like even it's actual brain damage. Like they're like tracking Alzheimer's and dementia to like lack of sleep,
100%.
less than like 6 hours a night, less than 4 hours a night, like how the brain needs that moment to kind of digest and cleanse itself, like the lymph nodes cleanse themselves, that the brain doesn't have its own noise like that. And so sleep allows that. So when you sleep, your brain is able to flush itself. And when it does, and that's how it builds up to dementia. And I met this woman from Sweden who's like the top researcher around dementia and Alzheimer's, and she's been able to track like a certain gene that is happening. And she was like, so literally lack of sleep is causing Alzheimer's and dementia. And
I read
was
that too.
blown away. And
That's insane.
It's so, and so when I talk about this, it's like it has so many branches. You know, it's the biological, it's the spiritual, it's everything that's happened as far as like
even in work culture, burnout, all of that,
burnout, trauma, all the things like. I think resting can be a huge foundation for us to begin to really unravel. I always love the word unravel. We need to unravel from the things. And to begin, it is going to be a lifelong, meticulous practice in love. It's an unraveling that's going to happen for the rest of our days because we have been so deprogrammed in this from the time of birth. I watched my son like be, born and then go into the schools and being rushed. And like every system in the culture is like, collaborating for him not to rest, for him not to like be well. And you really see it when you raise a baby or human. It's like, oh, okay, I see. I remember when you were this little, and now look, I haven't taught you this. Like, how are you knowing these things? And so that really was, even from the time how his birth story, he was rushed out of my womb when he wasn't even ready. And so I think the more we can be aware of that, I hope my work and my to be a veil buster, for it to just kind of like move a veil, bust, like remove something from your eye. I don't feel like it has to really be fully removed. I think just even the eye peeking out to be like, oh my gosh, like a little peep of a scan. Like what's really happening? I can't believe that. I trust that once people can get that awareness, and I trust the wisdom of our bodies, the wisdom of spirit to be like, well, wait a minute, what else can be done? I hope for that.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. One last question. If there's one thing you can talk about, what they don't tell us, one main point that people can take away from this, what is it? What don't they tell us?
They don't tell you that you are enough now, no matter if you do another thing, that you are born as a miracle and your birth is a miracle, that you're here. Like, if you understand the beauty of birth and the fact that you're chosen and you're here, you're alive, that alone is a miracle in itself, and you are enough right now. Not when you do another thing, but now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Tricia, you're awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been great.